All right, welcome back to the Real Leaders Podcast. Here with our new friend Mark from Choices Pregnancy Center. He said one of the largest, longest-standing pro-life organizations in the country, and now getting threats of being burned to the ground and tormented and tortured. So thank you for sticking in there and doing your job.
Absolutely.
And just wanted to ask you, so post Roe v. Wade, into that world, like we said, it's not a finish line, it's a new starting line, and it kind of moves to the state level. But what does success look like for the pro-life movement going forward?
The pro-life movement really needs to embrace the education side of things, and we had talked in a previous segment about understanding they needed to be able to speak coherently from the scientific side of things, from the socioeconomic side of things, and also from the religious side of things, and really have a good understanding of those three main buckets to go out and have an educated conversation with someone who maybe has a different viewpoint. And at Choices, one of the things that we're doing is interviewing our clients from all different backgrounds. What brought you here? What was going through your mind? Why were you contemplating abortion? What was your environment? And trying to build a holistic kind of library of information and resources so that other clients who come can see that and say, okay, that person was just like me, I can make this work. And then other individuals that are not familiar with the abortion narrative, but want to get more involved or learn more, they can watch those videos and at least garner a new perspective of this person was going through this person was abused as a child, this person was sex trafficked. And understanding too, the abortion issue does not just impact those that are having issues socioeconomically. There's a whole other camp of individuals that are the young professionals, affluent, they've bought into, they need their career, this child's going to be a hindrance, it's going to hold them back. They need to have that educational piece brought to them as well. So as a whole, on the pro-life side of things, it's being able to speak coherently into each of these buckets and bring it back to how is this going to impact the woman, right? Let's get back to that my body, my choice. That's a great place to start the conversation.
Yeah. And so for those that are, I've got the Abort Abortion ebook, it's free, and just trying to help. Where would you send people, like if you really want to educate yourself in these areas, what would be some resources that would be a good place for them to start?
So, of course, I'm biased. I think some of the stuff that we have on our website at choicesaz.com, client stories is a great place to start. Those are frontline narrative stories. Good. Even just a quick search online for abortion information, abortion facts. I know Christian Post and a few others have some great resources. I would love to be able to tell them, go to your local church and get some resources that I would pray that they would have. But really, even starting there and even going so far as to listen to congressional testimony of doctors presenting information. It's encapsulated, it's bullet pointed out of here's when a baby feels pain. Here's when we know there's viability in the pregnancy. And just getting a holistic understanding of the issue and those main buckets. Again, great place to start is just online.
Yeah, I saw one the other day. I was just, it's amazing all the information that is available. They're showing here's a needle coming toward a baby, and here's the baby moving away from the needle. You're like, if that baby is feeling pain and responding in the there is a point where if you have a conscience and you're made in the image and likeness of God, eventually you have to deal with reality. And you can have slogans and intimidation and show up at a clinic and protest and make a lot of noise. At the end of the day, I think it is trying to get it to the point of, here's what happens to the woman, here's what happens to the child. And if you have a conscience, something in you says, politics aside, that's troublesome.
Right. And most individuals that you talk to, even if they're on the pro-choice side of things, they will usually agree on one thing. Nobody really wants to have an abortion, right? Can we agree on that? Most will say yes, right? But like I said, unpacking what does that really do to her and to her life and to her well-being. Do you want to talk about career? Great, let's talk about her career. Let's talk about what that career is going to look like post-abortive, what she's dealing with. Let's talk about new relationships she's going to have where she's still carrying that with her. Let's talk about the fact that she may have trouble getting pregnant in the future. And really unpacking all of that around her, I think, is a great place to start and a good narrative to carry.
Yeah, and there was a dipping in abortion numbers, and now they're back up again.
About 7% between 2020 and 2017.
Yeah, and if that trend continues, this becomes a bigger culture issue. So for you, let me just ask this. Why? Why give your whole life to this? Why deal with all of this? there's other things you can be doing. I mean, right now, as we're looking at, Supreme Court justices' homes being terrorized and clinics being burned and destroyed and threats of safety and well-being, like, you got stuff you could do alternatively. This is not the easiest career path.
Sure.
Why is this the path that you are in?
It's a great question. I've asked that question many times.
Yeah, most Mondays probably. Yeah.
In a million years, I never thought I'd see myself in this role. I was on the board of directors, like I mentioned, and my predecessor said, hey, I think you're the person to take over. And I said, I love you, but you're crazy. There's no way that's happening. And as God often does, you think you're going to go this way. And he says, nope, we're going to go this way. And it's really taken me 43 years, I'm 43 now, to really understand I was put on planet Earth to defend things that needed defending. It's in my nature. And being at Choices is just the right fit. Has it been a cakewalk? Absolutely not. It has been the biggest faith-building event of my life, and it's still ongoing.
And what is it, and what price or what toll does that take on your family?
It's a great question. My wife is unbelievably supportive. So when I came home from my lunch that I had with my predecessor, she's like, oh, you should totally do it. Without even batting an eye. And she said, you're made for this. I feel like I've aged 10 years in the past 3 years. I'll be totally candid.
Just the stress, the spiritual warfare.
It's the stress and spiritual warfare. And that's not exclusive to me. Our entire team goes through spiritual warfare like you cannot believe. Yeah. But I'm proud to represent them. And I'm proud to represent the work that they do. And when you get to see the people that work at Choices and the work that they do, and a lot of the individuals that work at Choices are post-abortive. They're trying to help that young woman not make that same mistake. And I get to come alongside and empower them and steer the ship and say, hey, we're going in this direction. We're going to see twice as many clients as we did 5 years ago. Yeah. That's what keeps me going. Yeah. That's what energizes me. And to your point about my family, my daughters love the fact that I work at Choices.
And how old are they?
So they're 13 and 15.
Okay.
And they come to all the events and they're proud of what I do and they want to volunteer when they're old enough. And that to me is important too. It should not just be dad does this thing. Right. No, this is ministry work. You're going to walk alongside me. I'm going to show you what I do. I'm going to show you why this matters. And I've had conversations with my wife where I'm like, listen, if for some reason our daughters end up getting pregnant outside of wedlock, I want them to understand without any concern or doubt, come tell mom and dad. Yeah. That's what I want. Now, I pray that does not happen, but I want that kind of environment as well, especially with the organization that I work for and represent. Right. So to me, it's about providing, here's how I describe it. Yes, we're saving a life, the baby and the mother, but we're also, because of what we do at Choices, we're impacting that individual so they can go back and impact their family, their neighborhood, their colleagues, their friends, and that's how you get real cultural change. It's a pebble in a pond and the ripple that takes place. Yeah. Exactly.
Because I think a lot of times, the negative narrative that is said is it's people who hate women, high control, angry, domineering. There are two victims. And to ignore the suffering of the woman is not compassion, it's not empathy, it's not helpful. Thank you for your work. And for those who are Christians and maybe there's something similar to Choices in their area, it's a place where women who want an alternative and ministry and help and love and not just, don't abort the child, but here's some resources to raise the child. What would be some very practical ways that they could get involved, they could be helpful, they could add value?
I encourage anybody wherever they're at, find out where your local pregnancy resource centers are at. Do your due diligence online. Understand where they're at specifically. For Choices, we're unapologetically evangelical. That's just, our number one.
Some are Catholics.
Right.
Whatever.
Our number one value is spreading the gospel. But just give them a phone call. Stop by the center. Ask for a tour. Whether you have any intent in volunteering or not, just get boots on the ground and see what's actually happening. Meet with them. And then from there, have a conversation. What are your needs? What can I do to help? Can I bring some information back to my church to get my church engaged? I guarantee you, no matter what pregnancy resource center you go visit, they'll have something for you that you can help out with.
And how about, and you did that, we do this.
I did that in college.
In college, that's where you started. You volunteered and did PR at the local pregnancy center. And
they need help in all kinds of ways, not just, there at the clinic, but also donations and prayer and financial support. And there's a lot of ways everyone can help.
And you're exactly right. There's a lot of buckets that need filling at most pregnancy resource centers.
And so then for those who are ministry leaders or pastors or church leaders, there's a number of those. What would your encouragement be to bring post-abortive care into the church, saying there are women in your church that are carrying this oftentimes as a secret, and if it's in the darkness, we can't help them heal from it. We need to bring it out in the light. What would the practical encouragement be for the post-abortive ministry at the church level?
Well, depending on where you're at, it's as simple as just a quick Google search on things like Surrendering the Secret or Hope and Healing. That's what we have at Choices. Here locally, we've created into a program where we can just literally bring it into a church. It does not require anything on the church's part other than the use of a classroom. It's run and facilitated by post-abortive women. But my message to pastors is just start looking. And if you don't want to take the time to do that, have somebody on your team just go visit a local pregnancy resource center, because I guarantee you they have the curriculum and can just guide you on the right path to get that started. But to me, like we've talked, that's the low-hanging fruit. Help those individuals out in your congregation as soon as possible.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts, recommendations, next steps, calls to action?
I just encourage anybody who's listening to this today, if you don't feel like you have enough information, find it, hop online, start doing some research, break it down into different buckets, build yourself a reading list, get dialed into what's actually happening, pray for confidence, pray for wisdom and discernment. You can handle it. You can handle the debate. Don't worry about that. And then I would also encourage people to forget everything they think they know about life, start from the beginning, read those buckets of information, but then I highly encourage you to listen to interviews with individuals that had abortions or individuals that came into a pregnancy resource center and hear their story as well. That'll really put everything into context for you.
And where can they find your information, your website? Where would you like folks to go?
They can just go to our main, which is choicesaz.com, and from there they can find everything they need to know about the organization.
That's awesome. And I would say too, pastorally, just as a close, there is no issue in the Christian faith that you're going to enter into a conversation and be able to answer all the questions and objections. It's not just true on the abortion issue. It's true on every issue. You can pick any issue you want to pick: theological, spiritual, cultural, moral. People are going to ask questions or raise objections that you're like, I don't know. And that doesn't mean you need to be prepared for all of that. You just be honest and say,
Resources.
That's a great point. That's a great question. Let me go do some homework and get back to you.
Yeah, and I've done that myself many times.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's the intimidation for the believer, is like it's an episode of Jeopardy, and eventually they're going to come to a round where I can't answer the question. My first Bible study, I was a brand new Christian in college. God saved me at 19, and I brought all the guys from my dorm floor together because I wanted them to meet Jesus. Once I met Jesus, I want everybody to meet Jesus. And so I told them, I said, guys, I'm going to start a Bible study. I'd like you to come. There's like 10, 12 guys. And I said, they're like, what is it on? I was like, I don't know, because I don't know anything. But you guys give me questions and then give me a week, and I'll bring you the answers. So that was my first Bible study ever taught for a year. And by the end of the year, all or most of those guys got baptized. But and it always starts with dinosaurs and weeds. So that's where you start in college, were there dinosaurs? Can we smoke weed? Did the dinosaurs smoke weed? Those are your first three questions. But it was like, I just told them, like, I don't know, but I care about you. And if you have a question or objection, I will take my time and energy to try and provide you a reasonable conclusion. And for most human beings, that's a big deal. Most people don't care enough about someone else to actually assign themselves some homework to serve that person. And so if you are, sort of a timid evangelical or maybe a pro-life Christian or even just pro-life non-Christian, but you have a heart, but you have a fear, I think the best thing to do is to say, I will go find out. And I don't know, but I love you and I care enough to do the research. And I think that is part of our witness and part of our testimony. It's not just winning the argument, it's winning the person.
Correct. In love at
Absolutely.
all times.
Absolutely. Because I was the guy who started with a million questions and objections. I was full pro forced population control, scarcity of resources. I believe the myth that population tends to outgrow resources, and so that could lead to the eradication of humanity. I believed in evolutionary theory, and I believed that certain people were more fit and less fit. I had a billion objections, but when I got saved, there were a couple of very good, thoughtful, reasonable, loving Christians that endured me. and they would answer me, and they would do their homework, and they would come back at me. And as a result, they completely changed my perspective, my mind, and some of that was with you, Sweetie Pie, so thanks for hanging in there. But that's the whole reason that I'm even doing the Abort Abortion ebook and project, is just, this is what I thought. And then someone had to answer my questions and objections, and I want to help people do that for other people. Because a lot of the times, there's a lot of yelling at the big level, but there's a lot of chatting at the personal level, and this is where a lot of the change can happen.
Absolutely, and I love the concept of the Q&A, not knowing the answer, I'll go find it for you, even from a pastoral perspective. I mean, if pastors even said, hey, send me your questions on the life issue, whether you're pro or against. If I don't have the answer, I'll bring it back, but we're going to address this as a congregation.
And that would be, I mean, that would, just even as you talk about it, like for even pastors and ministry leaders, if you opened it up to your church, your ministry, whatever it is, your social media, and you said, send me your questions, and I'm going to start posting blogs. I'll do Q&As on my phone. You don't have to be super high tech, but whatever sphere of influence you have, God holds you responsible for that sphere of influence. And how do you bring reasoned, rationed resolution into that space? And so, yeah, just think about it. If every evangelical pastor said, since this is now a big cultural discussion, I am going to provide some thoughtful, reasonable, biblical answers, and I'm going to do so publicly to set an example for my people and to resource them, that would be massive. If the pastors would just do that, because sheep tend to follow the shepherd.
Yep.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. Anything else in conclusion, my friend?
No, appreciate it.
Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the ministry that you have. Thank your wife and daughters for us. We know it takes a lot to kind of be a person who's a little controversial and on the front lines and picking some fights on things that really matter. And yeah, I will send a gift from Real Faith Ministries. We'll send a gift from Trinity Church. We'll send a gift personally. I would encourage others to do so as well. And so again, where could they find your website and your ministry? I'd encourage them to give as well.
Sure, choicesaz.com.
Okay, lots of resources there as well. Be in prayer for you and to all who are on the front lines of the pro-life movement. And I would really like to hear about the post-abortive care and the possibility of bringing that into Trinity Church. And maybe, honey, you could follow up with that with the women's ministry.
Beautiful.
Thank you for making that available. Love and appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You bet.